So do you know that your environment, where you live, your room, where you stay, whatever environment you find yourself in, has a way or influences how you communicate? Yes. Edward Hall, the same anthropologist who gave us high context and low context culture, also gave us the environmental context. In his exact words, environment is here to psych. Say it again. Environment is here to psych. What surrounds you shapes how you think, how you communicate silently without your permission. So there are three layers of environmental context. One is the natural physical environment, the actual geographical space, your climate, your terrain. And there's the second one, which is the built environment, human adaptations to the physical world. This is architecture, housing, whatever you have it. And there is the perceptual environment, how people culturally lean towards their perceived environment. Now let's look at these three layers of environmental context. The physical environment. People who live in places where there is high snow, for example, lots of snow and weather, very, very cold weather conditions, they have a lot of words to describe snow. But people who live in places like Africa, for example, I'm an Igbo woman. We don't have a word for snow because we don't have snow in our context. We don't have that. So that's how the natural part is. The second is the built environment. The way human beings even build their spaces. Now, in the Igbo society, for example, the way the houses are built, you have the kitchen. The kitchen is most times built outside the house. Now, this is how traditional homes are built in Igbo culture. The kitchens are built outside the house. The bathrooms outside the house. And they have an ozobi, which is where, the oldest man, usually in the center of the building, welcomes guests, right? That's what you will see. If you go up North Kano, you will see the architecture is different. Sitting on the ground is normal, right? Sitting on the ground, even despite you're very educated, you're very influential, whatever it is, sitting on the bare floor is completely normal. And they even incorporate that in how they build their sitting rooms. Think of it as a class, for example. Some classes in the US, the way the sitting arrangement is, you have the podium, and then you have where, the students sit, so you have basically rectangle. In some places, it is designed to be circle. Like, the environment determines a lot about how you communicate. Now, having explained that three layers, let's now go to information load. So every environment carries an information load, the amount of information perceived per unit of time. There are high load places. These places are uncertain, they are complex. Think of a place like Lagos, where everything is happening at the same time. Your sense of smell, your sense of, hearing, everything is heightened. Think about yourself in the airport, where, there's a lot of uncertainty. Something could happen to disrupt your entire flight routine. So the way you communicate in that place is different. You're hearing announcements, you're paying attention to hear these. People are moving fast. Your senses are all active. And then there is low load. The low load is basically, think of yourself in your room, it's uncrowded, it's redundant, it's private, When you just think about how, when you move within these two environments, you are not just changing location, you are entering a completely different communication context. Most immigrants never name this shock. Today we name it, okay? Now, there are three worldviews of nature. Pay attention. There is subjugated to nature. Basically, this worldview believes that nature is an omnipotent supreme power, And people who hold these views are Indians. Nature, you do not fight nature. You just submit to itself. That's how some African cultures also have that view of nature. You just submit to nature, all right? And you even have some, for example, in Igbo, we have like land is a deity, right? The earth is a deity. The water is a deity. Because, the idea is that you submit to them. You can't alter nature. And then you have the other idea, which is what in harmony with nature. And this is people and environment change together in a mutual relationship. People that have these views are like the Japanese, Sri Lankan, they believe that you're in harmony in nature. So you move with nature, you flow with the rhythm. And then you have dominating nature. So dominating nature comes from a place like the US has this, ideology. So basically the idea is that humans have the right to control, to dominate, to exploit nature through technology. So most Western societies have that, Now let's look at an example. After the 2021 Japanese tsunami, the response was Gaman, enduring hardship and social discipline over individual needs, a culture in harmony with nature. So basically, there was this tsunami in Japan, and the government just says, hey, this is culture, this is nature, this is what we don't have control, this is nature, we don't have control, so we just flow with it, right? So imagine giving that kind of announcement in a place like the US where they believe that, hey, you can fix it, hey, you can prevent it. You're going to throw people into chaos because they're not used to that level of uncertainty. They believe you can explode, you can dominate nature. Now, Hall, a researcher, has 3 types of space, and 4 personal distances. So one of them is the fixed space. And this fixed space refers to permanent fixtures. The semi-feature space, this refers to movable objects. And then the informal space, perceptual, defined by the movement of people. And then there are 4 personal levels of personal distance. So you have the intimate. So the US has theirs, right? Intimate is 9 to 18 inches. Personal is like 1.5 inches. And you have the social, consultative, and public. Listen, there are cultures called the high contact cultures, like Arab cultures and even African cultures, where closeness is normal. Like you can actually smell somebody's breath, hugging, it's completely normal. And you see that in parenting, for example, you can see children, the family, husband, wife, and 3 children or 4 children are all living in one room apartment, face you. Or you can see an example in Nigeria where, your child, all your children have their own room. Nobody is saying, oh, this is my room and that is not my room, because high contact is not really a big deal, okay? And then there's low contact culture. Low contact culture, most US, physical space is well respected. The idea of privacy is a big deal. So you imagine you're coming from a place where there's low contact culture and you want to touch somebody. You're trying to maybe say hi and you touch them. You're going to run into trouble. Why? Because that can be seen as harassment. So you want to be careful if you are from a high contact culture and you travel for that global opportunity or that conference or whatever it is, and you go and touch somebody that you're not supposed to touch. They can't. In fact, it has actually happened where a student, mistakenly touched somebody, and a male student touched a woman in a way that is inappropriate. Yes, back in Africa, it's appropriate, but in the US, it is inappropriate, and that led to problems for him because she reported harassment. Okay, this is why intercultural competence is very important. Now, when you look at intercultural competence, for example, you look at how homes are designed. We've talked about how homes are designed. For example, the Navajo is a tribe, one of the Native American cultures. They have how they design their house in the winter. They have how they design their house in the summer. Let's now take a step back a little. Privacy across cultures. Privacy across cultures differs, right? Privacy is a boundary control. It is learned. It is learned. It's not something that you inherit. And there are 4 types. Solitude, being alone. Intimacy, alone with another. Anonymity, unknown in a crowd. And reserve, psychological barriers. These are 4 kinds of privacy. So let's look at what this now means in the context of collectivist and individual cultures, right? In collectivist cultures, asking someone their age, salary, or marital status is warm, right? Collectivist culture will be like, cultures like Nigeria. Whereas in individual culture, you want to, it's a violation of privacy and boundary, asking people personal questions about their love life. You don't want to do that. So, when you talk about environment too, let's now transition to time, because time is also a very important aspect of this. We have different kinds of time. One of them is what is called the polychronic time. Polychronic time, multiple things simultaneously. Relationships take precedence over schedules. So being late means that you were doing something more important. And that's why, Africa, so that is polychronic time. And you have that a lot in Africa countries, for example. And you have that in Latin America, the Middle East, Southern Europe. They practice polychronic time. Basically, an event ends on its own. You don't stop an event, right? You arrive when you should arrive, right? Because time is not something that you don't work so, you don't work on strict schedules. The same way it is for some places like the Maasai people Maasai people in Eastern Africa, and even some parts of, the Maasai people in Eastern Africa, they have their own concept of time. Their time, a month is not just a month the way you see month. A month is when the rain stops falling and some other indicators that they use to describe or measure time. So it's not universal across spaces, okay? Now, if you walk into a client's office, a negotiation room, or a new organization, if you cannot read the environmental communication, you are missing critical information. The layout of the room tells you about the power distance. So time again environment, where you are tells you a lot about power distance. And power distance has to do with how much power or how power is perceived from those at the leadership and those, that subordinates or the workers. So you can tell the relationship if it's a place where there's high respect for those in authority and a place where everyone is seen as like, okay, we're a team. So you can read the room to know how to walk through it now. So African time is not character flow. It is actually polychronic time orientation. It's different from the M time, which is the monochronic time. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget, I teach intercultural communication. I facilitate leadership development workshops for organizations and individuals. And I teach about global opportunities to young people. Basically, if you're able to know how to communicate and lead, I have a PhD in leadership communication, so I should know. If you're able to know these things, there's a lot you can do. So see the description for more details. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next episode. I promise you you're going to love it.